All right. So whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah. Oh,
Ben, you
well,
got your coffee?
yeah. Well, I've already been recording. Well, Ben, first of all, I would like to thank you for being like the first guest in this podcast. Uh, this, like, strangely enough, we have been discussing the idea of doing this uh, way before like this whole lockdown thing started.
Mm.
Actually, we were scheduled to travel to Mexico City a couple months ago for our
Wow.
first interview. We were going to interview one of the producers of Roma, uh, the movie by Alfonso Cuarón. But then this whole thing started, and then everything kind of stopped for us for a moment, and then we said, look, we gotta get going. We gotta do stuff. We
Yeah.
gotta this is like a new world, so we gotta find a way to get back to
Yeah.
work. And thankfully, it's 2020 now. This whole video call is very common, so we're able to do it like this.
Right.
And we were thinking, man, so who could be our first guest? And we have been talking about Lucas Dan, the script, which I don't know if you read it already. I'm just saying,
I
someone.
printed it up. I took a glance at it, and then it's been so busy, weird, because I'm just at home with my son all the time.
Yeah.
So between cooking, dishes, cleaning, laundry, making sure he's doing his lessons,
Mr.
Right.
Mom.
yeah, being Mr. Mom, and taking care of him.
Like your first get, we were talking about Lucas Dan and all this, and then we're like, hey man, why not Ben?
Yeah.
Ben is a pretty interesting guy, so yeah, sure, let's do it.
What happened?
Before we start,
China.
we had something great scheduled. I mean, we're really looking forward to that trip to Mexico City, and
Oh yeah,
oh
that'd
man,
been great.
we had the Rona, and we were excited about not only that we're gonna interview this person, but about, man, the tacos in Mexico City
Oh yeah.
are something
Uh
else.
huh.
So,
I never been to Mexico City. I really wanted to go.
Wow.
so in
Never.
Juarez we have the burritos. That's
Uh-huh.
like our thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
Mexico City, they got their tacos. Like, I mean, their
Tacos.
tacos. Like,
Yeah.
man, hats off to them. They're amazing.
Okay. So, like for all of us gringos, are you talking soft tacos, or the little ones, or
Yeah.
the crunchy tacos? What kind of tacos are you
Whoa,
talking about?
whoa. In Mexico, we don't have crunchy tacos, man. If you come to Mexico and ask for crunchy tacos, things are gonna get real.
Pero
They're
mi
gonna get real
suegra,
ugly.
my mother-in-law makes the best crunchy tacos, and she cooks like
Okay.
Mexican home
There's-
cooking.
There's this thing called tacos dorados, which is like you grab the tortilla and you put them on oil, make them a little crunchy, a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
That's as far as we'll go. Yeah, but I think from what I've heard in Mexico City, yeah, it's like the little tiny soft tortilla
Yeah.
tacos with all kinds of fillings and
Yeah.
salsas.
So
My mouth's watering. Yeah.
yeah. So like in the States, they call those street tacos.
Yeah.
something like
yeah.
that.
Like if you go to a restaurant and it says street tacos, that's the small,
The small
Yeah.
tacos.
soft
Yeah.
corn shell with whatever, whatever, a variety. I mean, they're all into it. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, Chipotle with
Oh no,
mango.
Oh no, Ben. We have. I mean, Jael and I, we've had ice tacos, brains tacos,
Oh,
guts
yeah.
tacos.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had those and they're delicious.
a little
Guts.
soft spot in
Yeah.
between the hoof.
Guts.
No.
Yeah. I mean, like the real good stands are like it's the stand in the corner, and you have the flies, and you have like the dirty dog, just like around. So if you have all those elements, you have a pretty good taco. Yeah, crazy cool times. So I just wanted to give like a little intro on what this podcast is about. It's called Fill the Gap. Everpodcast presents Fill the Gap, and pretty much the whole concept behind it is whoever we interview. Whatever success they've had in life, and success can come in many different ways. We always sort of hear like the story, but it's just like the major stuff. So it's like, hey man, so how do you do this? Oh well, so one day I was sitting around and I thought of an idea, and then I did it, and then I sold it, and that's it. Oh, great. But how about if you fill the gap? Just tell us those little details that you don't usually tell, And the concept was born when we were talking about, let's say, a businessman or whatever, and like Kyle and I, we have tried to venture in some things, but we always have this point where we are stuck, that we don't know where else to go, and we feel that talking with people like you or anyone could give us those little details that perhaps is going to help us and the people who listen to this podcast be able to cross like those bridges that they haven't been able to cross, you know. So that's a little bit of the whole concept with this. So we're going to be asking like some questions, and we're like, hey man, why don't you fill the gap on this and that, you know? So I don't know if Jael, aka Jesus, wants to start with the first question from Mr. Ben Vincent, which, by the way, I have to say that is like one of the coolest names, you know, right next to Vincent Vega.
Have you ever had, I mean, when you were, because you're a musician, man, you studied at UTEP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you ever spend your nights at the gas station having some gas station dinner?
No, I always worked when I was at UTEP. And it's really funny because I went to UTEP off and on for 25 years before I graduated.
Tell us about it.
I mean, it's nuts. But I started out, and my first year, I took a full-time schedule. And then my parents said, well, you need to get a job to pay for your insurance and gas and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I delivered Whataburgers from 86 to 89. For 3 years, I delivered Whataburgers. It was a delivery thing that Whataburger did just on its own. And it was great. I mean, I made good money. It was a great job. I was averaging like $8 an hour back when minimum wage was $3.75.
Whoa.
You were rich.
So, I mean, I loved it. It was a great job, but I couldn't take a full-time schedule once I started working. Oh. And we weren't rich white people. We were poor white people. And so, I mean, we just couldn't, they couldn't afford to have me not work, quote unquote, while I was in school. So I was always, from then on, I was basically taking a part-time schedule. And then I went away to UNT for 1 year in 91, 92. And when I came back, I took a 5-year break.
Wait, UNT, University of North Texas?
Yeah, University of North Texas, up there in Denton.
Oh, you went over there?
It's one of the best music schools in the world. I mean, it was an awesome experience.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. But I couldn't afford, it was really funny. By then, I had over 150 credit hours on my transcript. Huh. And you can't get financial aid when you have 150 credit hours.
Yeah.
So from then on, I couldn't stay there because I couldn't afford to, because I wasn't working while I was there. So I had to come home, took a 5-year break from UTEP, went back for about 2.5 years, took an 8-year break. And in that time I got married and my wife was all, you need to finish. So we buckled down.
Sandra make you finish.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it made sense. And there's another side story to that I'll tell you in a second, but basically, I went back in about another 2.5 years or so and I finished. So I started in the fall of 85. I graduated in the fall of 2010. So it was 25 years and a semester. Oh. And that's how long it took me to finish UTEP. Now, but I was always going part-time, even when I was going to school, in class. And I took a break, a total of like 13 years of breaks in between, because there's a 5-year break and an 8-year break. But I was a vocal performance major. And you laugh at that because all you gotta do is sing. Oh, no. A vocal performance major is like the most difficult major in the music department, I think, because it's like 3 degrees in one.
All right.
You have to study opera and how to sing opera, right? Because it's classical music. Then you have to study music theory, and you take all this music theory, and then you have to take all this music literature, more than the other degree plans. But when I was first there and I was first becoming a music major, because, well, when I started at UTEP, I was going to be an astronaut. I was in the engineering department.
That's a major shift. Yeah,
I was going to be an astronaut. I was in the physics department. The engineering department was studying physics. That's all I wanted to do my whole life. That's all I wanted to be, was an astronaut. And I was going to. My grandfather was politically connected. He was a Mason, right, with the Shriners and all the people with all the connections and all that stuff. So he would have gotten me the right appointments to the academy, and I mean, I could have become an astronaut. Well, then I felt a calling into music, and so from a religious perspective, it was just kind of like, okay, now I got to change. And I was a little nervous about it at first because I didn't know what my parents were going to say, and after a while they were okay with it. But when I was at UTEP, all the students in the voice department were talking like music education was a second-class degree. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go for music ed. I'm going to go for the difficult one. I'm going to go for music performance, for vocal performance. And if somebody should have just kicked me in the butt back then, knocked me upside the head and knocked some sense into me, because what finally happened, you have to do 2 recitals for a voice major, you have to do a junior recital, which is a half an hour, 8 songs memorized in French, Latin, Spanish, Italian, German, and English. So you have to, those of all those languages, you have to sing a half an hour, 8 songs in those languages. Then as a senior, and there's all memorized. As a voice major, you have to memorize.
Really?
Voice majors and piano majors play from memory. Every other instrument on the planet plays with their music in front of them.
But
So for whatever reason, you got to memorize all these songs and stuff. And so then for your senior year, as a senior recital, you do 16 songs, a full hour rehearsal. So as a music ed major, I would have only had to have done the half an hour recital, and I would have gotten all these courses on how to run a classroom and how to be a teacher. So I graduate with my vocal performance degree, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with it? And everybody says, well, you could teach. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm not certified. Because, here in the States, you got to be a certified teacher
yeah,
to
for
go in the
everything,
classroom.
right?
Yeah, to be a teacher. And so I wound up having to take more classes and spent like $4,000 more on my certification. Now, luckily, I had a friend who was a choir teacher. He's now the head of the administrative dean of the music department at Liberty University, which is the big Christian one out in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah, I know that university.
Yeah. So very conservative. If you ever hear anything controversial, kind of conservative, his name is Steve
The
Mueller.
last thing I heard was that they fully reopened.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
coronavirus.
they did.
That's what I've heard.
I mean, if you want to talk about that, we'll that's a whole other subject.
No, but I mean, I've heard about that university.
But he was.
Hi, everybody.
Was
all the students from Liberty. Hi.
Yeah. So, but then they also have a huge number of students online anyway. I mean, they're the largest Christian university in the world, and like 2/3 of their students are online already before the Rona.
They're a Christian university.
I mean, it's just huge. It's just they've already got that part figured out. Well, he was the choir director at Eastwood High School, and he and the one of the assistant directors of fine arts in the Saletta district, they were looking to hire a teacher for all these middle schools because there were no choirs in the feeder pattern heading up to Eastwood High School. So Steve wanted to have, students that had been trained in choir already from middle school coming into his high school program. And they created a position, and he just gives me a call and says, hey, you want a job? And I'm like, sure, maybe. I don't know. Because I didn't think about teaching. I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher, because I had somewhere in there, I did a permanent sub position years ago, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to be a teacher. Because the students here, because I was a substitute, and when you get the substitute teacher in, the students are all
oh yeah.
they act the worst, they're doing all the stuff. And that had been like years before, 10 years before, and I was like, no, I'm never gonna be a teacher. And my friend Steve, he kind of talked me into it. And just previous to them hiring me, while I was doing my alternative certification, I did a 6-week permanent sub kind of position for middle school choir. And even then it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I was teaching choir, I was teaching piano, and this was at Valley View Middle School down on North Loop. And that's where I went to middle school. Not the same building, because they built a new building. Now they built another new building. But it was still kind of the same thing. It was still kind of like, the students are really bad. And my friends, everybody I knew that was a teacher said, oh, that's the way it is always at the beginning when you're a teacher. So when my friend Steve got me this position, I was like, okay, let me give it a try. Good money, insurance, health insurance, everything. It's the whole package. You got holidays off. So, hey, why not? It's teaching. See how it works.
You have great benefits when you work for the independent school district, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I mean, it's you pay into a teacher retirement system that's in Texas, so you don't pay Social Security. You pay into a teacher retirement system, which is separate from Social Security. And if you have enough credits, or what do they call it? Anyway, whatever it is to get Social Security, I think they call it quarters, like 40 quarters you have to have. When you retire, you only get half of it because you've got the other one. But anyway, that's the U.S. for you. That's something Jimmy Carter pulled off in his presidency way back when. But I don't want to get talking about no politics.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You've there was a lot of doing it, like the whole astronaut and the music thing, and
yeah.
Well, and the fact that you say that it took you 25 years to get out of college. Now I don't feel so bad, because it took me close to 9 years to finish my major, which it's supposed to take 5. But it was also pretty much the same reason because I always,
Yeah.
since I was 20, I always had a job, you know.
Right.
So I could only take like 2 or 3 classes per
That's right.
semester, you know.
That's right.
And I took a couple years off. When you said that you felt, I don't know if I were, you felt the
Yeah.
calling
Right.
for music,
Right.
and that just clicked because I believe that, um, and I speak to you as a fellow artist because I am an artist. I mean, there's
Right.
an actual piece of paper that says I'm an artist, uh,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and you know, but other than that, I feel that uh, those of us who are artists, like we feel this calling. There's I don't mean to quote myself, but I guess I have to. I don't know, like in my film The Beast, you know, it's a little bit about that, you know. It's
Yeah.
about I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a little bit about that. It's the people who have this, we have this need, which I have this need to be constantly creating, to be telling
Yeah. Yeah.
stories. You know, me as a filmmaker, I have this need to be writing scripts and to be out, you know, with the camera and all of that. And if I don't do it for a while, I start getting like, you know, like anxious. You know,
Yeah.
which is during this whole lockdown, I felt that, you know, so that's why I started drawing and painting again, which
Oh,
is stuff
nice.
that I haven't done in years, you know, but I just gotta like do something creative. So can you like fill the gap a little bit on your
Okay.
calling
Sure.
towards music? Like what is that? What is like you as an artist, as a musician? What do you feel inside of you that you just have to do? Like explain like what's going on inside you, inside
Right.
Ben Vincent's mind, you know?
Yeah. Well, my family had been musical my whole life. My dad, not so much when I was a kid. My mom was always singing. We'd sing in the car. You know, I did productions at school, plays and musical stuff because I mean, I wanted to sing. I liked singing, sang at church. And, you know, forgive me if I head off into a religious kind of side of all this,
I
because
love
that's
it, Ben.
really,
And that's part of you. That's part of
yeah,
you.
that's right. I mean, that's really where it's coming from when I say it's a calling. My family was always involved in church. We grew up Southern Baptist here in El Paso. My grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister. In fact, when he died about 5 years ago, he was the oldest living chaplain's assistant from World War II, and he had been a pastor for 72 years.
72 years?
Yeah. So
Wow.
that was my mom. She grew up the oldest of 4 kids in a Baptist preacher's family. They were poor as church mice to begin with. I mean, he was never rich. He you know, he had a retirement so he could eat and had paid for a house, and they had good insurance because my grandmother was diabetic and all. But, you know, there was always that component in my life. We were at church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, youth group stuff with the teenagers. And then when we went to, my dad was in the military, and we were stationed in Germany in the early to middle 80s. And while we were there, we continued, of course, going to church, same thing, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday night, Bible study, youth stuff. And the European Baptist Convention has a camp in Interlaken, Switzerland every year, where the adults all meet. They take over this university and have classes and seminars and all this, you know, Bible study and learning. And the adults are all in the rooms and the kids are in the rooms. The teenagers get to sleep. It's like a camp, you know, but the kids get to sleep in a bomb shelter, like a Cold War era bomb shelter. So we're down in the bomb shelter and, you know, singing our, you know, Kumbaya songs and all that kind of, you know, cheesy, you know, youth group stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, meanwhile, I mean, this was my life, and I'm not trying to say this is what everybody should be doing or anything else. This is me, and this is the way I grew up, and still I'm very much this way. I felt God calling me into music ministry that summer. It was between my junior and senior years in high school. But again, my whole life, you know, I was pretty much going to be going into engineering, and for me specifically, I was going to be a physicist and go work for NASA. And my parents, you know, going to UTEP is a good engineering school. It's a good, you know, good science school. They were happy about that, you know, good future for our son. And my granddad, again, with my other granddad, my dad's dad, with all the connections, and, you know, I'm going to make it happen. And, you know, what better thing to have in the family but an astronaut?
Wait. So I'm sorry to interrupt. So your mom's dad was the pastor.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And he grew up, I mean, when he was a kid, he was a poor farmer in the Midland, Odessa area, out there where the oil is and the oil patch, but he was a farmer. And he met my grandmother before World War II. They got married. She was in Maryland. He went to World War II. He came back. I'm going to be a preacher because he had what they call a foxhole conversion in World War II. Became a chaplain's assistant. That's when like you'll hear this, especially in more evangelical circles or like American culture. A foxhole conversion is when the bombs are going off and everybody's dying and you're going, Lord, help me. You're not a believer, you're not a Christian, and you're going, oh God, help me.
Yeah.
And God helps you and you're like, oh. And so from then on, you have a conversion in your life and you're a Christian, you're a believer, and you believe God saved you. And now I want to do things for God. And that was my granddad. And
that happens to us. Like, I'm Catholic. That has happened to me quite a few times, where I'm in a bit of a pickle and then I just start like going like that. And then I'm saved and I'm like, I was just kidding. I'm not really gonna do that. Get out of here. And then something happens. Hey man, last time, I know I was a dick, but this time I'll get me out of it. And then I'm out of it and I'm like, get out of here.
I'll go to confession.
Yeah.
We're good. God and I are good.
Yeah. He knows.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah.
My grandmother, she always said her whole life, just as a joke, that she didn't marry a preacher because they got married before the war, right? And she was Lutheran, and so he comes back and he's this on fire believer, and he's going to college and he's gonna go on to seminary and become a pastor, and she's like, okay, but I didn't marry a preacher. But yeah. It was funny. Here's a story from World War II. My granddad, he had his conversion, and he's volunteering on the side with the chaplains in the field. He was in the island hopping campaign heading to Japan. So it's island after island after island, and he drove a tank. And so in between stuff, he was volunteering with the chaplains, and at some point, the chaplain they had got transferred out. And the commanding officer calls him in his office, and he's like, you can imagine like a 1940s, war movie, and he's sitting over there, you gonna be a preacher? And he goes, well, yeah, but I got to go home and go to college, and I got to go to seminary. I don't have any degrees. I'm a brand new believer. Are you gonna be a preacher? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he says, all right, well, fine. You're doing services this Sunday. So he was a brand new Christian, and he's already doing Sunday services for the soldiers because they didn't have any chaplains in his unit or in his area. And so, like right away, boom, he's already doing the work of a pastor in World War II. And that's why he was even honored with an award of some sort because I know the newspaper in Lubbock did a write-up on it about him being the oldest living chaplain's assistant from World War II around at the time that he passed away. But just, all the little funny stories that he would tell about stuff are always kind of spiced up with the fact that he was a pastor. Because pastors, it's like a priest, it's not right? You gotta have it's a separate little group.
No, they are the role models.
Yeah. And they can't, if you hear them say a cuss word or they do something, you're like, oh, my granddad would be working on a car and he'd say, he'd just mumble. I never heard him say a cuss word in my life, but he'd mumble, and you'd be wondering, what did he just mumble that bad word? Is he using bad language? So here I am, I got this, I had my calling to music in high school, and my parents are full well expecting me to go to UTEP and become a physicist, an engineer or something, and go on to work for NASA. And so at some point, of course, I'd have to join the Air Force and become a pilot. And one of the things that keep me from being a pilot is these things. So that was kind of a linchpin in it, but I had already felt my calling into music, and I was kind of like, well, how do you square those two things up? By that point, I'd already done like 20 shows, like on stage. About that time. Maybe just a little bit before that, because I did a few more operas and a couple more musicals. Because between 82 and 92, I did 20 shows. So this was about 80. I guess it was maybe more like right in the middle. Because I did a lot of stage work. I was always on stage. I love to act. I love to sing. Of course, your voice changes in middle school, so I didn't do a lot of singing in middle school. And then I didn't really get back to singing until I was like a sophomore in high school. My sister goes, because I never took choir in high school. I never took choir as a class in school at all. My sister goes, there's an after-school choir that they're doing tryouts for. You should try out. Because she was in choir and she thought I'd do great. So I went and tried out and I made it as a sophomore in high school. And so, and the same thing's true with the drama. I took drama as a freshman in high school here at Isleta High School in El Paso. But once we went to Germany for my last 3 years, I didn't take drama as a class. So, but it was what I did every day after school. I was always in rehearsals for choir and always in rehearsals for drama, for plays. And we did a lot. I mean, we did a lot of shows. And years later, when I went back to visit my high school in Germany, my drama teacher and one of the math teachers and the choir teacher were all sitting around, and they were all adamant about the fact that the group of students that we had while I was there were the best group of actors and singers they ever had. Because there were some people that were stellar, and it was just like this really creative group. Like you remember that? I don't know if y'all have ever seen the the movie Fame or the TV show Fame about the high school in New York, where all the
I know, but I haven't seen it.
We know it exists, but we never.
I'm gonna live forever.
Oh, right.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So this was an '80s thing, right? Well, it was like that, only like in a like just happened to be at that time that there were all these really great singers and really great actors. We put on some great shows. We packed the houses out whenever we put them on, and looking back, like, because it was about 12 years later, I went back, sitting around with those teachers, and they were like, "Oh man, we've never had a group of students like we had when you were here." And so it wasn't me alone, but I was in there with all these really great singers and actors. And it's like, I think a lot of times people might have a latent talent that can be brought out by the fact that they're around a bunch of other really good people at what they do. It's like when you put on a movie, it's like if you're the only one that has any talent behind the camera, it's a drag. But if everybody else has kind of got something going, then it's like all the cylinders are firing and the movie's coming together, and you're like, yeah, this is working, right? That's why all the big guys. What's that?
Actual teamwork.
Yeah, exactly. But it's talented teamwork. It's not just it's not like just somebody who can hold a mic, or somebody can hold a lamp. It's people who know what they're doing and know when to get the mic and where to put it and how to get that light just right. And like. You know what I'm talking about. That's in Hollywood. They just pay for all those people, right? They pay to get all the right people because there's millions and billions of dollars behind all the movies. So, but when it's volunteer stuff or school stuff, like we're talking about, like back when I was in school, it's all about pulling together all the talents and just finding the people that are really good at what they're doing. Just happen to be this really good time. So again, getting back to what I was feeling, I just felt it was something deep inside, and it was like God was calling me, and it was like a feeling, an urging, a drawing. And I just couldn't do anything about it. I had to say yes. I had to follow that calling. And so, after speaking with my pastor and talking about it within the Baptist church, it's kind of interesting, but like there are a lot of pastors that have never set foot on a seminary campus ever. They preached a good sermon. They gave a good Bible study. Their church ordained them. Because in the Southern Baptist churches, you can do that. If you look good, they like you, they can ordain you all they want. And a lot of pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention are like that. That's why a lot of times people are a little, you run into some people that are Southern Baptists, and you're like, what kind of theology are you talking about? Well, just because they never had any theological classes, they don't know, they've never learned anything about theology.
They never went to divinity school or something.
Right, like a priest. Right? Yeah, divinity school, seminary. There's that the here in El Paso, we got the seminary down on North Loop. There's a whole system that when you say you're going to be a priest, you have to go through the schooling, not just taking your vows of chastity and all that stuff. You have to go to school. You learn these things. Like in the currently, I'm at a church where I'm leading the music, and this is just a side thing for me, because for many years it was my main job, but for now it's like a part-time thing, and. Because again, it's still my calling. Really, I teach school so that I can afford to lead music in my church.
Nice.
If you really want to look at it,
So when was that breaking point that you were like, I have to talk to my pastor. I just need to forget about physics.
Yeah.
So it was like in the summer,
Well,
mid
I
80s,
lost
right?
I lost interest in pursuing the degree in physics and pursuing becoming an astronaut. I still think it would have been a cool thing to do, and I'm still very interested in space and science, and I still think like I did back then because I've always had a very scientific mind and mathematical thinking. But of course, that's paired very well in the brain with music. When you talk to most musicians, they're usually pretty good at math. You talk to anybody that's heavy into math or science or anything else, they probably play an instrument.
You
They
know,
probably
I have,
compose music.
I have a friend. He's an electrical engineer,
Yeah,
and he's one of the most talented musicians I've ever met.
exactly.
Let me tell you what he. I don't know how he learned how to play piano,
Uh-huh.
but he plays like this, melodic, symphonic, heavy metal music,
Okay.
power metal.
Power metal, yeah.
Yeah, and he has this great, heavy metal guitar, and he knows how to play it incredibly crazy.
Wow.
And I asked him, hey, so how do you learn how to play guitar? I just taught myself. I just,
Yeah.
know how to play piano,
Yeah.
and I figured out that music theory I could apply it here, and my fingers are great. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I know how to
Yeah.
play guitar. And then he learned how to play bass, and then I don't know if he knows how to play other instruments, but right now he's during the quarantine he's composing his metal symphony, and he
That's
has uploaded
awesome.
some videos in
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Man,
And with
okay,
modern technology, he'll be able to sit down and play all the instruments, edit it all out, and put it on YouTube, and people will go, "Oh, wow!" He'll be
yeah.
famous
But
for his
that
music.
music theory,
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah.
mathematical
Yeah.
thought process with music,
Right.
it's there,
It
So
is.
I know what you're talking about.
There's a definite connection. You can read articles about it. And the flip side of all this, talking about music education and other things, it's funny how, we're in the coronavirus thing right now, and they're
Mhm.
talking about what's the new school year going to look like and all this other stuff. And everybody keeps talking about, oh, they're going to have to cancel fine arts.
Hmm.
But here's the thing. And you can read studies on this. You can go online, you can talk to med students, medical professionals, you can talk to folks who study neurology, functions of the brain, education, everything. Students who are musicians, who are in the choir or in the orchestra or in the band, do well in all of their subjects better than other students who are not musicians. I mean, you may be good at stuff, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a musician or not. But it seems like the more students work on stuff, the compartmentalization in their minds of where the music goes and how it gets stored away and used, or something about that framework that's put in your brain as a musician helps you to do every other subject better. And there are hundreds of studies on this. I'm not saying this because I'm a musician. I want you to put your kids in music or something. It's like, I need a job, so you need to put your kids in music. The studies show, real studies from real medical professionals who really research this with real students, find that the musicians do better in all of their subjects, not just in music, not just in math. Their brains work better. And so it's a shame to me that the first thing people talk about canceling when there's something about funding or something else about school is fine arts, because that's seen as something else. The parents are, oh, well, we don't need that. All these charter schools that are starting up all over town to help students with the core subjects and do better so they can get on to college. They don't teach music. They don't have a band. They don't have an orchestra. They don't have choir. And so it's like you only in the public schools continuously, and many private schools, do you still get a good music education along with your core subjects. And it's integral. It's necessary. You need them together to be a well-rounded student and to have your brain work as good as it can.
Yeah, here in Mexico, it happens something sort of similar, because the government has like these programs and has grants for films, right, and also for the arts. And when this whole thing happened, they were like, okay, so we're gonna have to restructure the whole thing, right? And one of the very first things they were like, okay, we're gonna completely cancel this out, was the funding for films and for the arts. So like we're not gonna fund any movies like for years, right? And of course, like the whole people who are in the arts and filmmaking starting to speak up. And fortunately, we have these three monsters that are Iñárritu, Cuarón, and Del Toro, right? And they immediately were like, that's not happening. So they put pressure on the government, right? So they were like, okay, we're not going to cut that, But for some reason, and that happens in the U.S. government, Mexican government, and I assume in many other governments
all over the world.
The world. Whenever it comes time to like cutting money, the first things they go to is art, something related to arts, which to me it's like I don't get why people think that way about the arts as this like non-vital thing when everything that makes sense, it's about art. It reminds me of that speech that Robin Williams has in Dead Poet Society. I don't know if you remember it, Jael, which is
one of my favorite movies.
I don't like something like medicine, physics, and all that. Are important, right? But they don't mean anything without love, without poetry, without all this stuff. So yeah, it's still
to woo women.
Something like that. So
I love that movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I've seen it once, like 10 years ago.
Wow!
I need to see it again.
Yes.
I have it on my list on
nice.
On Netflix. So a lot of what you're saying to me, Ben, it makes a lot of sense to me because I say this with all due respect. I am not necessarily the most religious person, but when you say that you felt this calling from God to do it, and you said I think you said there's no way to run from it, I felt that calling, from the arts, from filmmaking, and before I actually got into this, I got into it late. I was like 25, and for 6-7 years, I studied optometry, the whole eyes glasses.
Oh, okay.
And I worked at a place where they did all that stuff, and I was miserable, and I just couldn't figure it out, and I could not wait to get out of that job and just be here at home and watching movies and watching TV. That's the thing that made me happy. But it never became like an option, because to me, like doing movies was like, that's crazy. That's for, rich people. That's for, that's other stuff, But like you said, there's no way to run from it. Like it was just in me, So I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I would like to also for you to fill the gap on, obviously you are an artistic person who's, your main thing is music, but you also do acting, which it's and I'll say this from the top. I've always been very envious. I have a lot of envy towards musicians, especially singers, because you have this talent that you can show everywhere.
Right.
It was like, hey, can you sing? Yeah, and you just do it, right? People go, in my case, Filmmakers, you have this talent? Yes. Give me 2 years and I'll make you a movie, man, and go see it.
Let me get a budget and a
script
and a cast
let me get $1 million bucks, man, and then you see my talent.
Post-production.
Yeah, and I when I was in junior high and high school, I had music class, and they taught us to play guitar, and I cheated because I never actually learned the notes. I would just learn some songs that I liked, So I would just learn like the things, but I never knew what I was doing. I never knew the names or anything like that,
We just call that playing by ear.
Oh, a little bit,
There are filthy rich famous people in music that do that to this day. I mean, not all those, the people whose CDs and music that you buy online. They don't all know how to read music. They don't know music theory. Half of them or more sit around and just do what you're talking about. Figure out how to play it because they do it by ear, and then people, take my money. I love you.
No, I didn't I would go. There's this music store here in Juarez where they sell like these magazines, right? For example, your favorite band, right? And they have every song and they have every note, and they actually have like the drawing, the drawing of the guitar, and they have like the dots where you have to put the fingers. So I did those, right? So for every class, they were like, okay, now you're gonna memorize this song. So I would just grab my little magazine, and I was just like, okay, dot 1 and 2 and 3. So I would just do that, and I would just memorize like the movements, Right. I never actually learned
that is a form of notation. That's called tablature. So you were following, like you'll hear musicians talk about this. They were following the tabs. You followed the tabs.
Oh,
which is,
see,
you know,
there.
that's the other thing. It's like in between playing by ear and knowing like rote by the music, like the actual
Right.
sheet music kind of version. But really, sheet music, to play guitar by sheet music, that's classical guitar. That's, you know, that's like flamenco. That's not like, I mean, that's not like pop guitar. Pop guitar is what you're doing, or what you did with the tablature, or just sitting around, you know, jing, jigga, jing, jigga, jing, jing, jigga, and that's all it is. So, you know, don't ever give up on that.
You know what? I honestly, I haven't touched a guitar since high school.
Oh,
You know,
man, come on, put that guitar up. Come on.
It was never, and I, for a couple of times during the years, I've tried to pick up on it.
Yeah.
But like, I love music. But here's the thing: whenever I play an instrument, I like to sing, but I can't sing to save my own butt, right? So I get frustrated. It's like I want to play guitar, but I want to be able to sing the songs, but I can't sing. So why bother? You know?
Uh-oh.
So I'm like, I want to do the whole thing. I want to
froze.
grab the guitar, play the song, and sing, but I can't sing. So I was like, why bother? I'll just break my heart. So back to the thing, as like you are an artist, and a lot of people tend to believe that whenever you do one thing, you have no interest in others. So, for example, if you're a musician, right? They would think, all you
Yeah.
like is music. Well, no, man, as an artist, you may like and appreciate other types of of of, art, you know, of
Right.
performance. In this case, you've done a little bit of acting, or a lot of
right?
a lot of acting. Could you fill in the gap in that transition, or when did your interest towards acting began?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, obviously growing up in church, you're always doing little church plays like Christmas play and whatever else. I've always liked movies. I always liked TV. We would act out stuff at home. Like my sister and I would put on little plays. I always had puppets growing up. We'd put on puppet shows for our babysitters, for, you know, the family. My parents bought me a little puppet stage. I was cast in shows like fifth grade. I was Ichabod Crane in The Headless Horseman. You know, so I mean, growing up, drama was always something I did. I've always, you know, liked being on stage. I like performing. It's not necessarily like, it's not like I look at me, look at me, look at me. It was just kind of like, oh, I just want to do that. And I don't know if that makes any sense, because, you know, a lot of people get on stage or they get out in front of everybody. It's like, oh, look at me. Oh, no, give me all that applause, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like when I'm done with a song, it's like, just, did you like it? Cool. Let me get off the stage as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like, or, you know, or like in a play, it's like, okay, the curtain comes down and I'm like, whew, okay, it's done. You know, and people are like, man, you did great. I love the way you pulled that, you know, or something else. And I'm just like, well, thank you, you know, and especially when it's music, like I'm at church, I'll sing a special song for church and people are all, oh, that was such a blessing. And I really love that song. I said, well, you know, well, praise God and thank you. I mean, I worked hard on it, but I feel like God is singing through me. You know, it's like, I don't really want people to focus on me. But on the other hand, I like doing those things. So it's kind of like, I still have a drive to do them, but I don't know what exactly my motivations are. I do spend a lot of time, like if I'm performing something, I'll record myself to hear how I sound, because, you know, you sound differently to yourself than when you hear a recording, right? Everybody laughs about that, but I totally got used to that, you know, 25 years ago. Because all of a sudden, here I am in the middle of a music degree and doing stuff, and it's like I sound like that, you know. I got used to what my voice sounds like recorded over what it sounds like to me, because, you know, inside your head you're hearing two different things. You're hearing the voice coming around to your ear, and you're hearing the sound reverberating through your skull. So it's like two different sounds coming together in your eardrum. And so,
wait a minute, are you saying I don't sound like Sean Connery? That's not my voice.
Swiss cheese sandwiches are a good thing, but no, you don't sound like Sean Connery.
Miss Money Penny. Oh my God.
Sean Connery with a Mexican accent.
Oh dear God. All right, I'll take it, I guess.
Swiss cheese sandwich.
Swiss
cheese sandwiches.
What you mentioned is something really interesting, you know, because, I mean, as a performer, an artist, performer in any discipline, you know, that you do in life, that your work is there shown to people, right?
Right.
There must be some kind of pride or ego, not in the bad way, because too much of anything
Right.
sucks, right? It's not good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you must feel, proud that people reach out to you and they're really happy with your job, right?
I mean, I like it. I like it from this point. I want people to enjoy
Mm-hmm.
things in life. Like if you come over to my house, I'm making coffee and I'm in a hospitality thing. I'm making everything comfortable for you. Um, we're in the car together. I'm like, oh, you like this music? Is the air conditioning too high? It's like, I like the people around me to be happy,
Gotcha.
and whatever I can do to make that better. So it's kind of like from that angle. Yeah, I'm happy that people are enjoying me doing the music. That's why I work on it, or me in the part, because that's why I work on the accents or work on the acting abilities. Because I want people to enjoy the production. I want people to enjoy what they're seeing. It's like, I've sat through so many things that I didn't enjoy. It's like, oh, I certainly don't want to be doing that, because I don't, it's like you're giving people a little gift, right? You've made this thing. It's like when you make a film, right? You made this thing and now you're giving it to folks, and they're like, here, do you want people to hate it? No, you want people to like it. You want to do such a good job with it that they go, oh, that's awesome, because it makes them feel good, or they enjoyed it. It's a beautiful sound. It's something beautiful to look at. It's not like they're going, ooh. There have been times when I've done stuff and, ooh, and when I look at it again, I'm like, oh my gosh, what was that? That's why I record, that's why I work on it to do better. So yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. There is an ego, and some people, everybody has their own motivations.
No, definitely.
I know people that are only so it's look at me, look what I'm doing. Me. It's all about them.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, definitely.
And so I don't think that's the way I
Hopefully.
take it. Maybe I do, and I'm just not seeing it. And maybe if you were around me more often, maybe you could, give me a little, hey Ben, you were saying you didn't want to be that way. Well, you're being that way. Stop it.
Yeah.
You better cut that out.
Yeah. Well, there's you mentioned something very, and I think we even talked about it when I was in art school. There's this selfishness from the artist, whenever we do stuff, whatever it's for, it's painting, sculpture, movie, song,
right.
Where and I say we because I definitely do this. I don't know if that's your case as an artist. Whenever we're doing something, let's say whenever I'm writing a script or when you're writing music, maybe at first you're trying to satisfy that need, whatever it is that you have inside of you. First you're trying to do something that you yourself enjoy and like, and then second comes the audience,
Right.
which we are thought that is a bad thing. And I think no, I think, look, man, how can I give you, the audience, something if I don't like it? So first I have to, it's like when you're cooking, you exactly. Do it as you do it to your liking, and you season it and you taste it, and then like, oh, I like it, and you go, well, I hope you like it too, which I don't think there's anything wrong with being selfish as an artist, I mean, I guess
maybe like what you're saying is like there's this much selfishness and not this much selfishness, right? There's
like in my case is this.
Yeah, or like this ego that's like, oh, you don't even want to be in the same room with them.
Yeah.
Like Tom Cruise or somebody, it's like, oh man, the guy's just too much.
Yeah.
And you love the movies and it's great, but it's like after a while live, you're like, on a couch somewhere. And
I feel that same thing with Marlon Brando. Like, I respect the man. His work is beautiful. So when I saw the movie Last Tango in Paris, there is a scene. I don't know if you've seen the movie. If you guys,
I haven't.
No,
I should.
I don't know. I mean, it's too erotic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, definitely R-rated.
Oh,
like R+ rated.
Okay. Oh, like X-rated.
Not X-rated.
Not X-rated, but it should have been. When was it done?
It was done after The Godfather. It was done like 1973.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? And he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
there's a scene. I might spoil the movie for you if you don't mind.
No, go
Well,
ahead.
that he
He's not gonna
Spoiler
see it,
alert.
man.
talks to the, he's giving out a speech to the corpse of his wife because his wife commits suicide. You don't see it in the movie. They just tell you, oh, he's a widow.
Yeah.
Why? His wife commits suicide. Why? And I forgot why. But some reason you see the corpse in there, right? Like with candles and flowers and everything.
Right.
So he's giving out a speech, right? And you see the whole time that he's facing down towards the body. So you think he's crying. But then years down the road, they tell you, hey, well, guess what? The reason he was looking down wasn't because he was crying. It was because he had like these little notes because he never wanted to memorize the script. So what brings it to here is like, Mr. Bando.
He did that. He did that also in The Godfather, right? I mean, there are
Yeah.
pictures of oh my God, I forget his name. We were talking about him the other day. You and I had the bald guy, the one who plays the lawyer in The Godfather.
Robert Ball.
Robert Duvall, yeah. I mean, there are literal
Robert
pictures of Robert Duvall with like the notes, like sheets like stuck to his clothes, in front of Brando because Brando just wouldn't memorize the damn lines, So
Wow.
it's like, Jesus.
I got an offer for you. You can't refuse. Tape that script to your chest, or I'm gonna have to shoot you.
Yeah. The thing is that Marlon Brando was really talented, but everybody knows about his ego, right? So I think that, I guess that if I would have never known this story about like Last Time in Paris, I would have still think, oh my God, his acting was beautiful, which was. But then after I knew about this, it just takes away the memory, right? At least to me. But I know what you mean. And it's really great, Ben, that you mentioned also about that ego and selfishness. Because I guess that, we all kind of have it, but you have you mentioned something really great, that you just want to do it because you want people to enjoy your work, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's when those unselfish intentions are in your mindset and in your work, you prosper success. And that is like a common trait with entrepreneurs, artists, or any type of successful people. They have their mission. They just want to do something, first of all, because they like it, they have to like it, and then they just think of the rest. So I think that, from a director and producer standpoint, you let people like do their job and just try to picture, this overall. You see it from an overall perspective,
like a big picture.
A big picture, exactly. You just want everything to run fine. So
that's right.
I guess that when you're in those type of positions, or I guess when you want to, be more successful at anything you want to do, you have to put into perspective and into practice those unselfish thoughts or mindset, like you just described. So Ben, tell us about your musical influences. Who's your favorite band? And I wanted to ask you that because you also mentioned something really beautiful. You mentioned that it's like, like a movie or your work is a gift to people, right? So what is your favorite songs? Not my favorite. One of my favorite songs is "The Year of the Cat" by Al Stewart. I'm pretty sure you never heard that song.
Sorry, for me, you're gonna run into something funny with me, and that's because I was such a devoted evangelical Christian. I pretty much gave up listening to what would be called secular music in the late 80s.
Okay.
The music of the sinners. Just say it, Ben.
Right? Satan's music.
The damned to
I gave
hell.
up Satan's music for literally, let's say, 20 years, maybe 25 years.
Oh, you were off the grid.
Like I was kind of off the grid. Now, there's this whole underlying grid of music, believe it or not, that's Christian music. And if you get into a certain group of people or in a certain place, you're going to find that there are thousands of artists you've never heard of that are part of the Christian music world. And some of them you've heard of, like, because every once in a while they'll put out a song that's big on regular radio, quote unquote, secular radio. but
Like
they got
Creed?
their start in Christian music. What's that?
Like Creed.
Yeah, like
I
Creed.
think
Well,
Creed is
Creed,
like Christian.
Creed wasn't a Christian band, but they kind of had like spiritual overtones.
They kind of
Let me give
sold
you,
it like that, you know, like Christian rock.
yeah.
Like
Let me give you an example of an artist who got started in Christian music, and then became popular in quote the secular world, and then said, "Oh, we were never a Christian band." You ever heard this artist named Evanescence?
Oh yeah.
What? Yeah, yeah.
Right?
They
Yeah,
started.
I love Evanescence.
Evanescence started out as a Christian artist, and because it's easier to break into music through the Christian music world and then step into the secular music world where it's all the big business than it is to just break into the big business, because it's a big pond with a lot of fish. But in the Christian music world, it's still a big pond with a lot of fish, but it's a smaller pond than the secular world. This is really funny. I've done a lot of stage work. Like I said, 82 to 92, I did 20 shows in that 10-year period, average of 2 a year. I've done a number of shows since, on and on and on. I mean, I've had all kinds of favorite music, blah, blah, blah. But I know very few musicals. And like every one of my musician friends, they can sing every musical on the planet. You tell them Rent, and they're like, 525,600, they're singing everything. And I'm like, huh? What's that from? Or, like you're saying, this artist, these songs and stuff. So like, I know 80s music really well, all the way up through like 87. But I grew up listening to country. Like my mom and dad listened to country. So, and we're talking country music from before Urban Cowboy.
Oh my God, we're talking. Oh, way back. Oh my God, man.
So here's the thing. John Travolta. If you look at John Travolta was in 3 movies that changed the musical genres or exemplified the musical genres of 3 different periods very well. Grease, Saturday Night Fever, and Urban Cowboy.
yeah.
But Urban Cowboy changed country music forever. Before Urban Cowboy, it was still, there was a certain sound, but it was very country and very down home. And what Urban Cowboy did for country music was made it popular. I'll never forget, I was in middle school one year, everybody's dressing disco. They got the big open shirts and the big bell-bottom jeans and all the stuff like disco, polyester dance suits and those platform shoes for the dances and everything, disco. Urban Cowboy came out that year over the summer. Everybody comes back to school the next year. They're all wearing plaid shirts with snaps, with button, with big belt buckles. They're wearing blue jeans with boots, and I'm like, what the heck happened? Because I grew up, I wore boots, well, not a lot, but I always had boots growing up, jeans and the belt buckles. I still have a whole collection of my belt buckles from when I was growing up, because we're kind of country, it's just the thing. I listened to K-Hay, which was at the time on the AM dial. It was 690 AM, and they tried to start a country station on the frequency, which is now 102, the big pop station in El Paso. So they tried to start a country station on, nobody would listen to it. Nobody, because they were all loyal to K-Hay 690 on AM. So all through the 70s, it was still AM. In the early 90s, they did the Y96 thing, where they started doing an FM station for country. And then slowly but surely, they phased out the country broadcasts on the AM. I think it was in the 90s when they finally stopped broadcasting country music on AM, because everybody was still so loyal to K-Hay from 690 AM, from growing up. So like in high school, I switched to listening to pop music. And of course, the 80s music, I don't know if you know this or not, it's the most popular genre of oldies.
Which one?
Like oldies. Whenever anybody talks about old music, oldies, like you think 50s or 60s, 80s are the most popular. More popular than the 90s grunge and rap and 2000s, anything up to now. 80s it's the most popular era for old music. So anyway, lucky me, I grew up in that time period. So, like I love listening to freestyle. I love all this stuff. But in about 87, I stopped listening to all this secular music. And I had already been listening to Christian contemporary music. CCM is the way it's designated, CCM music. And so we're talking artists like Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Steve Taylor, who was really radical. Like on his 3rd album, he had a song called I Blew Up the Clinic Real Good. It was an anti-abortion song. And the song's about how get this, he's an ice cream man. And he figures if they keep killing off all these babies, I won't have any clientele. So I blew up the clinic real good.
What?
And it, like, I mean, you want to talk about radical? I mean, this was like, it's like this pop song with this saxophone going, and I'm like,
Wow.
I mean, it was.
Okay,
He
what's
did
the
it
name of the song,
tongue-in-cheek.
Ben?
It's called "I Blew Up the Clinic Real Good."
Oh my God, I'm gonna check
Look
that
it up
out.
on YouTube. The video's funny. He did it kind of as a joke, right? He's not saying I'm going to blow up the clinic. His music was all about tongue-in-cheek, you know, trying to make, because a lot of his most of his other songs were pointing fingers at hypocrisy in the church. People thinking they're holier than thou. Preachers who are all about do what I say because God told me to tell you to do this. You know, real authoritarian figures. He sang against all of that. I mean, his music is really great. Great lyrics.
An anarchist within the church.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Christian, or more like just a Christian apologist or something. He sang against the hypocrisy in the church. He still does. He's still around. He's produced a lot of music. He's still producing music. So I listened to all these bands, and then I moved into listening to all these artists: Stephen Curtis Chapman, this other group of. It's almost like Steve Taylor was like the granddaddy of Christian alternative. At the same time, there was this California group of contemporary Christian kind of alternative music that was growing around. This guy whose name was Terry Scott Taylor. They both have the same last name, and they're not even related. Their styles are like completely different, but they're both like the grandparents of Christian alternative music. So like, I mean, if you came and looked at my CD collection, I got like 1,000 CDs in here and records and everything, all my tapes. I've got like everything that Steve Taylor's ever done, Terry Scott Taylor's ever done, you know, certain artists. In the 90s, it started shifting a certain direction. This group called Jars of Clay became super popular. I've got everything Jars of Clay's ever done. So basically for me, music, I was heavily influenced from the 60s because of my parents.
Okay.
70s country, 80s pop and alternative music, or new wave as we called it back then. And then all this contemporary Christian music, and really contemporary Christian music for many years had a style that was basically like the music of 5 years ago in the real world. Like you'd get a brand new CD from a Christian artist and it sounded like somebody else's album from 5 years ago. All the way up through the 90s and early 2000s. And then the internet hit and Napster and all the things where you could share music and this electronic delivery of music to where it's more instant and quicker, and something changed. Now contemporary Christian music is pretty much, it's got the sound and the flavor of anything that's on the air. Most recently, there was an artist, and for a while she was the biggest artist in pop music in the Western world. And you may have heard of her. Her name is Lauren Daigle. She was on Ellen. I mean, she for a while there, she was the flavor of the week, and oh my gosh, she was huge. She was the biggest name in music, but she's a Christian artist. And there were times when some of the artists I mentioned. Go ahead.
Lauren, what's her name? Lauren what?
Lauren Daigle, Dagle. She does a couple songs like "You Say" and some others. Her style, I mean, she sounds a lot like what Adele sounds like. Deep female voice, kind of that lower range for female voices. And so when she was first on the Christian radio, I was like, oh, it's a Christian Adele, you know, that's what she's going for. But her style is diverse. She's doing things that kind of sound a little like island, you know, like reggaeton or something. She's got an excellent voice and an excellent style. I don't know if it's her or the production folks behind her that are making this sound work. She's awesome. So she's like an example of a current Christian artist that did all this crossover. Amy Grant was like the first big deal Christian artist to get like have records that went platinum and went gold in sales, that did music that she then produced to be put out in the secular market. Oh my gosh, the Christians went crazy. You know, this is back in the 80s, and they're like, oh my God, get the music. They were pulling her records off the shelf at the Christian bookstores, thinking she was going secular and converting, and she was going to be a heathen and, you know, play the devil's music like you were joking about, all this stuff. And all she really wanted to do was just widen her audience out and get the good message from her Christian music to a wider audience. And so she just did songs and she was super popular. You talk to people who were teenagers or young folks in the 80s, they all know Amy Grant because she had all these huge hits on regular radio. And it's like, you know, but she was a Christian artist. And so, I mean, I know a lot about Christian music for much of the last 30, 35 years. But there's this chunk of time between like 87 and 07 that I hardly know anything about secular music. I really don't. And of the last 10 or 15 years, I know more about it, but it's only because I paid a little more attention because I've only been teaching for 9 years. And so, because, before that I was on staff at church. We mentioned, following calling into music. I started leading music in churches when I was in high school as a volunteer. And then it was one of my first jobs as a music director in a church was in 1989. So from 89 until now, I have always been employed in a church leading music and or youth, like leading youth groups, doing Bible studies and trips and activities with teenagers. Although the last 20 years, I haven't really done much with youth because it's just been, churches get smaller. And when they get smaller, they start cutting programs like education, like the arts and everything else. And the first thing they cut is youth ministry and music ministry, and because I got to have a pastor. And so, a lot of churches around town have just shrunk down in size. And I was like, the last time I was employed full-time as a music and youth minister was in 2007.